Sankhya Karika. And the beautiful thing is that it's a new gift to us. He's going to do an hour and a half session today for the whole group. So let's welcome our dear Prabhakar ji. So without ado, let's start the session with Prabhakar ji.
Jai Gurudev, everybody. And very exciting that it is the second episode of Sankhya Karika. Om Guru Bhyo Namaha Hari Om. Jai Gurudev, Jai Gurudev. So, in this wonderful, in this wonderful session and the ecosystem that has been created, I was going through what we need to do in episode 2, and it struck me that we may have to stretch our time a little bit today. So no problem. Those who have budgeted only till 9:30, you can exit, because now we are recording the session and we will post it on YouTube. So you can watch the remainder after that. There is no problem. Those who can stay and be with me for the full session, most welcome, because today's session has suddenly got to be very exciting for me, and I hope it will be very exciting for you as well. Yeah. So the way we are going about Sankhya Sutras is that we just had an introduction. We just had an introduction in our episode 1, which was the last Monday, the first Monday of January. And now we are in the episode 2. We have got something like 68 sutras. Yeah. So even if we do one per week, it will take many, many weeks. I mean, sorry, one a month, it will take many, many months. Yeah. But we will see how it goes. I see a lot of people getting very impatient, saying, can we have more sessions? It will happen. Gurudev will see this course is happening only because of the tattva of a living master. There is no other way that such knowledge can come to us. It happens only because of him. So somewhere we will get guidance. Yeah. Although this is not like a proper course, it is just a sort of a series of lectures, you can say. But even then, it is happening only because of his grace. Yeah. So first of all, I thank you, Sudha, for that little introduction. I always love it when you find out something about me that's not so commonly known. So that's also interesting. Yeah. So let us just do a quick recap on what we had done so far on our Sankhya Karika. Yeah. So let me just bring up the So we are looking at Sankhya Sutras of Rishi Kapila and also the Sankhya Karika of Ishvara Krishna. Yeah, so let us just do a little quick recap. Yeah, what we did last time. You know that Sankhya Karika or Samkhya Karika, it is the surviving text today is of Ishvara Krishna, roughly around 350 BCE. And Kalidasa, who was maybe 100 years before that, he is considered, the Ishvara Krishna is actually considered as an incarnation. Yeah. So we had gone through all that last time. Yeah. But let us just again understand Sankhya Karika. What does it mean? Samyaka khyapa iti Sankhya Karika. That is how Sankhya Karika is defined by Ishvara Krishna. He says that a thorough, complete exposition, that is Sankhya. And Karika is like it is a work, like a workshop. It is the work that gives a complete exposition. Yeah. It is a complete exposition of all that one should know. Now, this is very, very beautiful here. It says, it does not say it is the exposition of this or that. It says it is the exposition of all that one should know. Sankhya Karika, we know it was composed by Maharishi Kapila. And I also told you about the Arya Chandas, the four matra signature beat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It is into a beat. So you can see, like, it is like Kalidasa's kind of, that it lends itself to that kind of the dance drama kind of a thing. Yeah. So the most important thing to know is that it is the theory of universal manifestation. Because if you know all that one should know, you can create your reality. That is what it means. And then we took the Ishvara Krishna's interpretation of Dukkha Traya Abhigatat, Jignyasa Tad Abhigatake Hetav. Yeah, so we understood, we said that the whole thing started with three kinds of suffering. Okay. And here I went on to tell you that the very first shloka of Sankhya Karika, Ishvara Krishna is giving this information for the people of that time. Though that time the people already are talking about three types of sufferings. During that time, although in Sankhya Karika, what are the three types of suffering? It is not listed in by Ishvara Krishna. But at that time, everybody was talking about the three types of dukkha. That is all the pains. So, and we know one is Adi Bhautika, Adi Dhaivika, and Adhyatmika. We went through all this. Yeah. So I'm just doing a quick recap so that we understand where we came from. So there is some kind of misery that happens because of other living things. It could be a person who hurt you or let you down. It could be a mosquito that bit you and gave you dengue. So that is one category. Second category is acts of God, which cannot be explained. Yeah. So somebody suddenly is diagnosed of cancer and they say that you have got only 2 days to live or you got 2 weeks to live. It is, see, we can't logically explain why this dukkha is happening, why this pain, why this suffering is happening. If there is a tsunami, an earthquake, a volcanic eruption, a meteor hits the earth, these are acts of God. That means we can't explain this. So this is the second type. And the third type is our own ignorance. That example of the pot. Yeah. So if you're focusing on the pot, not the space, naturally you will be miserable. So these three types, actually, apart from these three types, there are no other types. Yeah. So we understood that first line, that there are three types of misery and what those three types of misery are. Then we come to the second one, Drishte sa parthe chen, naikanta tatyantato abhavat. Yeah, so that is the second one. Okay. So before we actually continue, I will request our Nightingale Leela to just give us the first two lines, and before that she will chant the Purna Mantra, and we will come to know why this Purna Mantra we will keep on chanting during these Sankhya Sutra episodes. Yeah, later on you will come to know about it. Yeah, so over to you, Leela, for Purna Mantra and for the first two lines of Sankhya Karika.
ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. दुःखत्रयाभिघातात् जिज्ञासा तदपघातके हेतौ दृष्टे सा पार्थाच्चेन् नैकान्तात्यन्ततो भावात्.
Thank you so much, Leela. That is just so beautiful when you do it. It's just gorgeous. Thank you. So, let us now again go to the second. The previous episode, I spoke to you about the first line. That is, Dukkha Traya Abhigata. That means 3 types of miseries and what they are. Now, Drishte Sa Partha Chen Naikanto Atyantaha Abhavat. So, this is what we need to understand. We are doing first Ishvara Krishna. Okay. So, the reason why I do this Ishvara Krishna is there are many people who amongst us will gain a lot out of Ishvara Krishna's interpretation also. This Ishvara Krishna's interpretation is like food for the soul. Yeah. When you listen to Ishvara Krishna's Sankhya Karika or Samkhya Karika, it makes you feel good, you know. So we will do both. One is Ishvara Krishna and the other one is the 35,400-year-old version, the original of Rishi Kapila. Yeah. So before we go on to this, many people have asked me, what is Sankhya Karika? Because Sankhya Karika is not like Patanjali Yoga Sutra, but he knows about it. You know, Nyaya Sutras, people know about it. You know, so many of the other things people know about. Yeah, Yoga Vashishta, Ashtavakra. See, people are familiar with this. Spanda Karika, for example, which Gurudev recently spoke about. So all these people are familiar with. Sankhya Karika, Samkhya Karika, not, we don't know in the system of Indian philosophies, where is it coming? So one of our Mandalavatika teachers, Rani, she had actually done some research. Last time when we were exploring, a couple of years ago when we were exploring Sankhya Karika, she had done some research and I will ask her to actually now present.
Thank you, Prabhakar ji. So, yes, I'll share the evolution of Indian philosophy. So, let's begin with what is philosophy itself. Right? Philosophy is a systemized study of general and fundamental questions, such as, what is existence, values, knowledge, mind, etc. Right? These kind of questions about fundamental things. And what was the Indian philosophy, wondering most about? It was about questions like, who am I? Why do we suffer? How do we get free from this suffering? These were the basic questions that the Indian philosophy was majorly concerned about. And if you look at all the different philosophies, we can classify them into 2 major kinds. So one is called the Astikas and the others are called the Nastikas. The Astikas, or the word Asti means is there and Nasti means is not there. So what is there and not there? The basic subject that they're talking about is the sanctity of the Vedas. So the Astikas, they revere and take the sanctity, they take the authority of the Vedas as very prime and important. Nastikas, they may either deny or they are neutral to Vedas. So among the 6 Astikas, the first is Sankhya philosophy, which we're already learning about right now, by Maharishi Kapila 35,400 years ago. And that talks about, the manifest and the unmanifest. That's how reality is, the matter and conscious. That is the main philosophy in it. Then we have Vaisheshika where it says that everything, it's concerned about material science. What is atom? What are subatomic particles? And how the mind is also a part of that is what Vaisheshika explores. Then we have Nyaya, where we talk about logic and and knowledge, and how is our perception? Is it okay the way we are getting the knowledge? That is what the Nyaya philosophy deals with. Then we have Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which most of us are familiar with, where we're talking about yoga as of something, not just yoga and asanas, etc., but life itself and consciousness. And then we have Purva Mimamsa, which is dealing with which is based on the earlier literature, Vedic literature. That's why it's called the Purva Mimamsa. And then you have Uttara Mimamsa, or the Vedanta, which is basing itself on the later literature, the Vedic literature that was available. And if we go to Nastikas, the first one of them is Jainism, which says that the whole aim of life is to gain knowledge about everything. And Buddhism also, both Buddhism and Jainism have a very neutral approach to Vedas. Buddhism says that nirvana or liberation is what the aim of life is. And we have Charvaka, which says enlightenment and all that is not really important. Maybe there is rebirth and karma is possible, but otherwise the aim of life is to have to make human life more pleasurable. And another way of classifying Indian philosophy is by calling it monistic, dualistic, and pluralistic. And that is to say that monistic says there is a universal oneness. Everything is just one principle. The Vedanta and Buddhism talk about it. Then you have dualism, which says there are two. There is manifest, unmanifest, that kind of. So that's dualistic. Dvaita and Sankhya philosophy are based on that. Then you have pluralistics, which talks about there are many possible, many realities, and it is not just one or two. So that is Vaisheshika and Jainism talking about. So when we go to Sankhya Sutras by Maharishi Kapila, we also see that there is another one called Samkhya Karika. We just heard about that, Ishvara Krishna's Samkhya Karika, and how they're different. We know that Maharishi Kapila's was way long back, and Samkhya Karika of Ishvara Krishna was based on that one. And if you look at all the Indian philosophies, we find that Sankhya philosophy is like the basis of Eastern philosophy. It's called the mother of mathematics as well as Ayurveda. There is a mention of that in Patanjali Yoga Sutras as well as Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 as a mention of it. Then if you look at, you say that, okay, is Sankhya only talking about astikas? But if you look at the way Sankhya philosophy works, it does not derive everything from Vedas. It gives the validity to Vedas, but it is not waiting on that to derive or confirm its philosophical thesis. So you can also call it like as a Nastika philosophy. And if you take away Purusha from the whole picture of Sankhya philosophy, then it is like a monistic philosophy as well. So all in all, and also, we heard the story of Sage Kapila last time when Tanya presented. Sage Kapila was creation itself presenting coming in the presence of human form to give the knowledge. So from all that and all that we've seen so far, we can say that Sankhya philosophy we can also trace in all the Indian philosophy, and so it can be called as the origin or mother of all Indian philosophies. So I hope you got a small picture about it. Prabhakarji, you're mute.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Rani. I think you've done an excellent job in sort of highlighting where exactly Sankhya comes in. And as you can see, Sankhya is so ancient. It is everything else is we are talking about a couple of 100 years, couple of 1,000 years. We are talking about 35,400 years back. We are talking about a philosophy where it is said that the Brahman himself, Brahman is what? That ultimate underlying field from where reality emerges. The Brahman himself became a creation as Maharishi Kapila and came and gave that knowledge to his mother in the form of Sankhya Sutras. So we are really talking about very fundamental knowledge here. And that is why this knowledge does not even go into anything in terms of ritual, anything subjective, like dukkha. It is not bothered about whether you get a rebirth or cycle of life and death and misery. It is not even concerned about that, because it says, when you know all that there is to know, then you are divinity yourself. Then there is no question of dukkha and all that. Dukkha is for people who have forgotten their divinity. And that is the period of our Ishvara Krishna. Ishvara Krishna people have forgotten that they are divine beings. Here we are talking about 35,400 years ago. Every person that walked on the earth knew he was divinity. Simple. So for them, with their knowledge of who they are and knowing everything that there is to know, there is no question of suffering and all that. It is just a question of really having a wonderful experience of this entire creation. To experience the creation was their fundamental purpose. And to experience that feeling good about it. Not feeling that, oh my God, I have to suffer, on this planet. That was never this thing. So now when we go back to the second line, Drishte sa partha chen aikanta atyanta abhavat. So what is it that they are trying to say here? So if you take a literal translation, it says drishte. Drishte means visible or ordinary means. If there is an inquiry, this inquiry would be meaningless if it did not provide a solution that was forever, it was complete, entire, and it created the absence of the suffering. So this is very interesting. Ishvara Krishna takes the first line, says dukkha traya. 3 types of suffering are there. He says the inquiry, the jigyasa, the inquiry into this inquiry will only make sense if the existing means for removing these miseries are not complete, they are not absolute, they are not entire, and they don't completely remove the pain. Only then that this inquiry becomes meaningful. See how beautifully he does that. So, what are the ways by which we can get rid of this miseries? 3 types of miseries. One is by doing dhyan, okay, meditation, self-inquiry, swadhyay, doing our homas and rituals, yagyas like Ashwamedha yagya, okay, big yagyas are there, Rudra pujas, all these things. If you do, what Ishvara Krishna is asking the question is that if already means are available, then is there any purpose in asking this question, dukkha traya abhighata? So how do I get rid of these 3 miseries? Is there a point in asking the question? See, in Nasadiya Sukta, when we did the exploration for the Mandalavatika teachers, we found that every subsequent line in Nasadiya Sukta was the answer to the first line which poses the question. Here also it's the same thing. Basically, what Ishvara Krishna is saying, okay, there are so many temples. You go and pray to the God. There are so many ways of doing yoga, meditation, gyan, dhyan, all this. There is so many yagyas you can do. But has all this permanently removed the dukkha traya? Answer is no. At that time, in Ishvara Krishna's time, and even today, see, we can do all these things which are means to remove suffering. But it appears that even doing all this We are not able to get rid of that. Still there is suffering. In fact, Ishvara Krishna goes on to say, even gods, even though they are divinity, the gods, they themselves are also having fears. Lord Indra, most of the time he is worried that somebody will pull the carpet under him. All the time he is worried. So even he, being God, is having suffering. So do the others, because even other gods, suddenly one Asura will go rogue and he'll start destroying the universe. Then they have to go and catch him by becoming more rogue than him. Then after that, somebody has to come and cool down this super excited turbocharged Deva. So like that, he says, even in the Paraloka, even in the Daivaloka, there is misery. So he says, since nothing seems to permanently take out this misery from our life, it is worth having that jigyasa to explore and explore these three. The dukkhatriya, it is worth exploring because the existing methods of removing the dukkha do not seem to give us a complete, absolute, permanent solution. See, that is how Sankhya Ishvara Krishna starts Sankhya Karika. So in the first itself, he says, your jigyasa is important. Your spirit of inquiry is important, because somebody will say, if honey is available in my garden, why should I go to the mountain to get it? Here Ishvara Krishna is qualifying it. He says, the existing methods of removing this dukkhatriya, three types of dukkha's and misery, do not seem to have a complete. So what are the three words he has used there? This is very important. We have to take this. He says, naikanta, that is entirely does not remove. Atyantaha, that is forever it does not remove. Abhava, that is it does not take it away. That is, it does not make it completely absent. So, since known methods do not remove the dukkhatriya, the three types of misery, we have to now look at Sankhya Karika for answers of how to permanently, completely, and forever. That means it is one-stop solution. You forever to remove these three miseries. This is how Ishvara Krishna starts his Sankhya Karika. And it is very beautiful because it is really relevant to us. Because many of us know we do all the sadhana, we do all the pilgrimage, we go to Mahakumbh, we do temple tour, we do everything. But still there is misery. Still we are getting shaken. Still we are getting off-centered. Still so much of dukkhatraya continues. So, is there another way? One short solution by which entirely, permanently, forever, completely dukkhatraya can be taken out of your lives? Ishvara Krishna says, if your jigyasa is correct, I will give you the answer based on the commentary of Rishi Kapila. So this is one understanding of what is there. So isn't it so beautiful, right? Now, all this we spoke about, the recurrence of pain, everything should go away, right? Now we come to Rishi Kapila. Now, Rishi Kapila is talking about Sankhya Sutras. Now, it is based on something called axiomatic knowledge. What is axiomatic knowledge? Last time I mentioned this. Axiomatic means that which does not require proof. If I say 1 plus 1 is 2, whether it is one stick or 1 rupee or $1 or one universe. 1 plus 1, two similar things, if they are added, they will give 2. Simple. There is no question. For this, I don't need a proof. So axiomatic method means you start from the fundamental base and using logic which does not require proof but is self-evident. If you do a exploration, that is called an axiomatic exploration. And Sankhya Karika is an example of powerful axiomatic knowledge. It is self-similar and scale invariant. That is, like I said, it doesn't matter whether it is 1 atom plus 1 atom equals 2 atoms, or it is 1 black hole and 1 black hole, or 1 cosmos and 1 cosmos. It doesn't matter what the scale is. The scale can be at the quantum level or the scale can be at the cosmic level. It is 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. So there is no question. So that kind of logic, if you use to understand everything that there is to know, then we call that Sankhya Sutra. Use of combinatorial mathematics. Use of combinatorial mathematics. What is combinatorial mathematics? If I say 1 plus 1 is 2, and if I say 2 plus 2 is 4, then 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 should be 4. That is combinatorial mathematics. If I take 3 fruits from one tree, and like that I take 3 fruits from 3 trees, 3 plus 3 plus 3 must become 9. There is no proof required. This is sheer logic. Imagine 35,400 years ago, Rishi Kapila said, using this kind of logic, I will tell you everything that there is to know. I will tell you everything that there is to know. There is no subjective. There is no something that, oh, it was his experience, my experience. I saw some blue light. I saw some white light. No. I am going to tell you using the very basic principles that I'm going to use some very basic axiomatic principles to say what is the real truth. That is what we are talking about. Yeah. So axiomatic knowledge, self-similar, scale invariant, combinatorial mathematics, and all derivations from basics. That means you have to start at the basic level, and from there you go step by step using simple logic. Step by step you go. Then when you start from the base and go step by step, everything that you should know, that you need to know, will become evident, says Rishi Kapila. Using just logic and mathematics, I will teach you everything there is to know. And then he says, the last one he says is that internal proof based on axioms. Internal proofs based on axioms. What is internal proofs? If I start with this level and I say that this level must be this because if it is not for this, it cannot be that. It cannot become that. Okay. This kind of logic, which is very common sense, you can say. Okay. He says all the proof that I will give you in Sankhya Karika to show you how creation happened, everything that there is to know about creation, I will teach you by giving you simple internal proofs based on axioms. Starting from the basic, I will take you step by step, where every step becomes the proof of the previous step. Same like Nasadya Sukta, which we did. Yeah. So in Nasadya Sukta, every line, every subsequent line is the proof of the first, the statement made in the preceding line. This is actually a way in which knowledge was given to us in the ancient days. Knowledge in the ancient days was given to us like this. It was based on axiomatic internal proofs, internal theorems based on axiomatic logic. Yeah. So we will understand this whole 68 sutras is about this only. So this is just for you to understand what we are talking about. Now, when it comes to our understanding, Rishi Kapila says something very, very beautiful. And if you see this picture, universe came into existence long before man came into existence. You see, man has come only very recently. The universe started 3.8 billion years ago. Okay. The universe started 3.8 billion years ago. According to some of the estimates, man has just come in the last couple of thousand years, he has come here. Even maybe tens of thousands, or maybe a couple of 100,000 years, but not into millions and billions. Rishi Kapila says, first thing he says, boss, universe existed before your brain formed. So, whatever is the secrets or the fundamentals of creation, they existed even before you came to this planet. Therefore, if you truly require the answer of how creation happens, it cannot come from your intellect. It cannot come through your intellect, because universe was created before your brain was created. So how you can explain the universe based on your intellect? He says the way to do this is you have to observe nature. You have to observe what there was before you. And in observing nature, you will get the answers to how creation happened. This is very, very beautiful logic. He says, you can make some equations and you can do some physics experiments and, CERN and particle accelerators and all that. But he says, boss, that is only one part. First thing you have to do is to see. And I will give you one example of this. Everything in nature is cyclic. You take the seasons, you take the rotations, you take the evolution of anything, it's all cyclical. But in our science and physics, we treat time as linear. We are treating time as a linear function, and we actually treat our own lives as linear. And we think that everything in science, all the material, we make linear predictions. That means if there is a ball here and I hit it, this ball will go there. It is a linear thought process. Our brain likes to think linear because then we can predict some things. And when you can predict some things, it gives the person power. And people want to have power. 35,400 years, they did not do all the silly things. They were infinite. They were absolute infinity themselves. They did not look for power and all that. This power comes where you have predictability. If I believe everything is linear, then I can have power over the future. You try to understand this. And we are trying to explain creation through a linear principle. This is the fundamental flaw in our physics. Where does physics start? Physics starts with the material world. And in the material world, we are trying to predict everything as a form of linear progression. Point A to point B to point C to point D. Whereas everything in nature, if a seed falls on the ground, a plant comes out, it gives flowers, it will give seed, seed falls on the ground. If an animal is born, the animal grows, the animal dies, all that atoms and everything will go into the soil, and from there new life will happen. If summer comes, then autumn, then spring, winter and spring, again summer will come. Even our heavens, they are all cyclical. That is how we are able to date Sankhya Karika to 35,400 years. So when everything is cyclical, why is our physics and chemistry and mathematics trying to do something linear? Rishi Kapila says, boss, universe creation happened long before you came. The least you can do is first look at nature. Because if you look at nature, nature will give you it will reveal her secrets to you. So don't try to use your intellect. Try to be one with the nature. Answers will come to you, is what our Rishi Kapila says. Now, this is a very beautiful thought process. For example, I have always wondered, we have got the quantum world and we have got the classical world. Classical world is whatever world we are sitting right now in. You're sitting in front of your computer in a room or wherever. I am sitting in front of my computer in a room in Bangalore. All this world around me is my classical world. Classical world means a material world. Yeah. But the atoms and even the subatomic particles, all that belong into the quantum world. Okay. And between the quantum world and the classical world, it is only a question of size. So from something that is 10 to the power minus 15 meters to something that is 10 to the power 15 meters, it is only a scale. But physics has not been able to match these things. A quantum level and cosmic level, somehow even with the special theory of relativity and everything, you are not able to explain the small in the big and the big in the small. Yatha pindam tata brahmandam, which every Vedic scholar knows. That fundamental principle, physics is not able to merge together. So if I look at this from an atom, some molecules being formed, then some crystals being formed, then some computer chips or some material coming out of it or whatever, where did life start? We can't actually draw a line and say that life started here. Rishi Kapila says that you have to look at nature. Just because you have self-awareness, just because you can become aware of yourself, it does not mean that nothing else is got awareness, self-awareness. People who have dogs or cats, you know that the dog is aware of itself, right? You don't need rocket scientists to tell you that. When you are with your dog, you know the dog is very much aware of itself. It knows who it is, right? Like that. So if the dog knows, then maybe the cat does. If the cat does, then maybe a mouse does. If the mouse does, maybe a bird does. Like that, if you go down the line, where do you stop? Rishi Kapila says for that you have to start at the beginning. You can't suddenly start somewhere just because that is what you see around you and say, I am starting from here. And from here, I will be able to tell you how the universe got created. No. He says that inquiry, that method of inquiry will not lead you anywhere. You have to start at the very basic. That's what he says. So, he goes on to say, in his interpretation of the first sutra, what he is saying, dukkhatraya abhigata jignyasa. So he says the triple stress interactions, investigation into the triple stress interactions, that is the triad of interactive stresses, confirms that such interactive modes of stresses exist. But it would not have been detectable had it not been for the coherent, perpetual, dynamic, unmanifest, which is aikanta atyanta ato abhavat. This aikanta atyanta ato abhavat is the key. In some Vedic understanding, they have given a name for this. They call it the Brahman. Aikanta atyanta ato abhavat. That is something that is oscillatory, dynamic, perpetual. So therein we have to understand what is it that we are talking about. We are talking about something that is coherent, something that is perpetual, something that is dynamic, and something that is unmanifest. So Rishi Kapila is now saying that were it not for this perpetual, dynamic, unmanifest, oscillatory state, this, what we can call the Brahman or whatever, he says, were it not for this, the triad of stresses, the very fact that the triad of stresses, that is the three types of dukkha, the three types of stress, the very fact that these exist is proof of the Brahman. It's a very beautiful way of looking at the same thing. The same thing Ishvara Krishna explained in a different way. He said the investigation into relieving yourself of the triya dukkha, the three types of misery, is the jigyasa should be correct because the existing means are not sufficient. The same thing here, Ishvara Krishna, Rishi Kapila is looking at it as completely different. He says, detecting the triad of triple interactions and that such interactive modes exist, the detection would have been meaningless were it not for the synchronized, perpetual, dynamic, unmanifest state. You see the same words, the same Sanskrit words here mean one thing and in Ishvara Krishna means something else. This can come to us only because of Pujya Gurudev. This knowledge cannot come from Googling on the internet. This exploration of a knowledge that is 35,400 years old can only happen by the blessing of a living master. And that is why we are so grateful, eternally grateful to him. So the same Sanskrit words, Ishvara Krishna gives a very beautiful interpretation. Rishi Kapila goes head on, takes the bull by the horn. He says, I have to start from the very, very basic. In that basic, there is some stress that is happening. There are 3 types of tensions that are happening. And that stress causes creation. It's a very deep statement. Our physics, our modern science, if it had started there, we would have been champions by now. But our modern science did not start from there. It started from laboratory, where we are taking material which is already existing. We know today in quantum physics that there is nothing called material particle. There is nothing called a material particle, because everything is a field. It's a spandana. Everything is a field. We know that in Mandalavatika we have done that. Everything is a field. And in Asadiya Sukta, in that Gahanam Gabhiram, there is this entire field. Unmanifest field. From there creation happens. So Rishi Kapila says, now saying that this is my starting point, where there is nothing, yet in that nothing, it is dynamic, it is oscillatory, it is perpetual. In that, so when I say there is nothing, like in science we say the vacuum is empty. Vacuum is not empty. Rishi Kapila 35,400 years ago said, the vacuum is teeming with action. Only now in the past 5 years, 10 years, people have actually started to discover that actually vacuum is full of things. There is more thing in the shunya vacuum than there is that we can see in this universe. That is what scientists are now finding out. So this is very interesting. So now what happens? This particular substratum of space, which he calls Aikanta Atyanta Ato Abhavat, that is the synchronized, permanent, dynamic but unmanifest state. This Rishi Kapila uses in the very first shloka. He is laying the ground. He says, this is where I will start. And from here, I will give you clear logic so that you will know everything that needs to be known. I will not now do anything mumbo jumbo. I am going to give you clear mathematical axiomatic knowledge based on combinatorial axioms. And I will take you. Everything that you need to know, you will know. This is my starting. What is my starting? This one where he says, this Atyanta. So this Aikanta Atyanta Ato Abhavat. Synchronized, permanent, dynamic but unmanifest state. He says that is where I have to start. See, I have to start where there is nothing. Then only I can explain how something comes. If I say I am starting with something that is already there, you can ask me the question, before that what was there? Then it is a meaningless thing. It is a complete meaningless thing, isn't it? If I say this universe started with the Big Bang, I can ask you, before the Big Bang what was there? Rishi Kapila does away with that. He says, I am starting with the unmanifest. Because beyond that there is nothing. I'm starting with the base where it is dynamic, it is unmanifest, it is oscillatory, and it is permanent. So that is the base. From there I will take you and I will give you the understanding of this universe. So this is now what he does is, the beauty is that in the 68th sutra, again he will take us back to this Aikanta and Atyanta. Aikantam and Atyantam. In the last 68 sutra, he will say, He will take you back, one full loop, he will bring you back, and he will say, now I have taught you everything that there is to know. So it's an incredible exploration. In 68 sutras, Rishi Kapila will start with this base, unmanifest, dynamic, oscillatory base, and then he will bring it back there. That is extraordinary. Yeah. So that is how Rishi Kapila works. Okay. Now, let us try to understand this Dukkhatraya. So, what our Rishi Kapila is talking about is that when there are three parameters that are changing at the same time, okay, if there are three things that are changing at the Dukkhatraya, so three stresses are undergoing change, our classical physics says that we need three equations to describe that. We have to give three equations because there are three types of change happening. Therefore, we have to give three equations to describe the three kinds of stresses which are undergoing change. Rishi Kapila says, no, I can give one law. Just using one law or one variable, I can describe all three. And this is very beautiful. This is something worth understanding. So what he says is, suppose you take a bow. Okay, so here you see the picture. There is a bow which is not loaded. And then we start to pull the bowstring. And then we load an arrow. Yeah. So the outside is expanding. That is, it is stretching. So the outside of the bow is tensile stress. That means it is expanding. The inside of the bow is compressive. The inside of the bow is getting compressed. Outside is getting tensile. That is, it is getting stretched. And the bowstring is getting into tension. But at this point, the arrow is not left. So if you see a bow loaded, the outside of the bow, there is tensile, that is stretching happening. Inside of the bow, there is compression happening, and the bowstring is in tension. But if you look at it, there is nothing. It is still. He is saying that this substratum, the Brahman, is like the bowstring, loaded bow. All the three stresses are there, but they are in equilibrium. That means the compressive strength, the tensile strength, and the tension in the bowstring, they are all in equilibrium. Because they are in equilibrium, you can't say that, you can't even look at that bow and say it is ready to fire. Because everything seems to be still. It is unmanifest. But the moment there is a slight imbalance, that arrow will fly. Till the arrow comes out of the bow, you don't even know whether the bow is loaded or not. It looks still. Rishi Kapila is saying, the Dukkhatraya, when the three stresses are in equilibrium, the Brahman remains Brahman. The moment the stresses start to interact and that equilibrium gets shaken, creation happens. And he will tell us how creation happens mathematically. Okay. So just understanding this is a huge thing. So he says the expansive, compressive, and tensile stresses can be expressed in one law. That law he calls Dharma. See, this Sankhya, no, it is like an arrow. Every word he uses, no, it's like the arrow will go and hit you. The law of Dharma for him is the one description of the dukkhatraya, the tension between the three states. When the tension between the three states starts to happen, the description of that state is dharma, he says. And from there, he will take it right to the end, to the 68th sutra. He will show what is dharma. It's a tremendous interpretation of dharma. Unbelievable. So, when we are talking about our conventional physics, when the arrow is shot, it is represented by a scalar force. Scalar force is basically the speed of that arrow which is leaving the bow. And what the Schrodinger physics, now why we are talking about Schrodinger physics, the scalar physics is just the speed of the bow. The vector is the speed plus the direction of that arrow. Yeah. The Schrodinger equations will tell you if it hits a tree, how far will it go inside the tree? But quantum physics and classical physics can only describe this after the arrow leaves the bow. Get this. Quantum physics and classical physics, they can tell you how far this arrow will go inside when it hits that particular tree, which tree it will hit, and how deep it will go inside the tree. This they will tell using classical physics and quantum physics. Whereas Rishi Kapila's Dharma, he says when the bow and arrow is in dynamic but restful state, even when the bow is bent and the arrow is in the string and the whole thing is in a restful state, the law of dharma will tell you how far this arrow will go and penetrate. The description of that arrow, so imagine arrow as a creation. It's a creative force. So law of dharma, when the bow and arrow are in a restful state, it can tell you how that creation will be. The law of dharma for that creation is already determined when the arrow is not yet fired. So 35,400 years ago, Rishi Kapila could say, even before the arrow gets fired, which law of dharma is going to operate in that creation. Very beautiful. Which law of dharma is going to operate in that creation is there already in that restful state of that bow and arrow, where the three stresses, expansive, compressive, and tension, all the three stresses, they are already there, and the law of dharma will say how that creation will happen. This is incredible logic. Yeah. Now, therefore, Maharishi Kapila proved mathematically that one axiomatic law of dharma operated eternally, self-organized, self-controlled, thus enshrouding it with the indelible mark of divinity. It truly describes the universe beyond humanity, needs no human beings to understand cosmic physics. Viewing it objectively, it must be so. It is indeed an axiom. So very clearly he says, human beings are not required for creation. We are not important. The creation happens because that dharma, the dharma is a it's a self-governing principle. which will pervade every level of that creation. And what is it that we call something like that? We call it God. We human beings call it God. Rishi Kapila did not need to call it God. He just called it the self-governing, self-encompassing law of Dharma. And that was already there in that unmanifest state. This is something very beautiful. Okay. Now, when we go to the next, you will see, people who understand or have studied Bhagavad Gita, there is something very beautiful there. See, Maharishi Kapila, he unified material and spiritual. By precise mathematics, he said all the manifestation was a hologram, the very embodiment of spirituality, which is why we call it Maya. See, what is Maya? Maya is just a projection of the fields. In the fields, something gets projected as a particle, and from that particle, creation happens. It's a hologram. So, using mathematics, Rishi Kapila is going to teach us how that hologram happens. And once we know that, we can create our own reality. We don't have to be in that dukkhatraya. We don't have to get stuck there. We can create our own reality. So he, in chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna told Arjuna to be without the three gunas. He says, imbibe, that means just become innocent. Because the guna or the innate genetic quality of the individual clouds his ability to see through the confusing variety of manifestation that hides the real nature of the event. So in chapter 2 is all about Sankhya Karika. Sankhya Sutras are in chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna says, for once, just drop your gunas. Just drop your gunas, because when you drop your gunas, in Mandala Vatika, we call it becoming innocent. When we become innocent, the tattvas will automatically come and operate in our manifest universe. So, Lord Krishna says the same thing to Arjuna. Just become zero guna and you will see me. You will see the real truth of creation. That is what Bhagavad Gita tells you in chapter 2. And that is actually come from Sankhya Karika. So here you can see something very beautiful. Sankhya Karika of Ishvara Krishna and Sankhya Sutra of Rishi Kapila, side by side I have put. The same Sanskrit, Dukkhatraya Abhigata Jignyasa, same here also. There he are talking about threefold suffering. Here we are talking about triple stress interactions. There we say we want to know, here he says we have to investigate. And he says the means for termination. Here he says such interactive modes exist. The same Sanskrit can be interpreted like this. And he says here, Ishvara Krishna says, looking for would have been meaningless were it not the solutions that were existing entirely giving complete forever solution which removes pain. Here he says, to detect such would have been meaningless were it not for the synchronized, perpetual, dynamic, unmanifest state. See the same Naikanta Atyanta Ato Bhavat. Here is also the same Sanskrit. But what Rishi Kapila is saying is something so different. Ishvara Krishna is saying it is for his times. So the same thing, and this explanation is only because of Gurudev. The same Sanskrit. Rishi Kapila, what he was saying, and Ishvara Krishna, how he interpreted it for his times. Both are correct. Both are correct. But we want to go 35,400 years back. So that is our this thing. Now, actually, if you see, You know, when we talk about quantum state, what is a quantum state? Quantum state is where all possibilities are there. All possibilities are there. But when somebody observes, it becomes one, the probabilities collapse and it becomes one reality. This is quantum physics and this is material physics. So in quantum physics, a particle can be in all places. You can just get a probability of the position of the particle or the probability of the nature of the particle. All possibilities exist in quantum state. But in the moment an observation happens, all the possibilities collapse except one, which becomes the reality. So in physics, you have got the double slit experiment and the Schrodinger cat and all that. So what I am trying to show here is something very interesting. Just like the Schrodinger cat can be in all states of alive and dead till somebody opens the box. Similarly, every day, every one of us, and really mark what I am saying, every day, every one of us, we go into quantum state. When do we do that? Either at the time you are going to sleep or at the time you are waking up. That is the time when you have dreams. Dreams are the quantum state of reality. Because in a dream, all possibilities are existing. You can be a child now, you can be an old person, you can be an animal, you can be a plane, you can be a rock, you can be a tree, you can be in America, you can be in here. All possibilities are possible in dream state. And that happens in that phase between waking and sleeping. Dreams are realities in quantum state. And this either before you go to sleep, just as you're going to sleep or just as you're awaking, in that interface, all possibilities exist. But the moment something observes it, so you're waking and all possibilities are there. You're just in that half awake, half sleep, lot of possibilities, all possibilities are there, but something observes. And then you wake up into the same place you went to sleep. This is Sankhya Karika. So in Sankhya Karika, Rishi Kapila explores that you are in a quantum state. The creation is in a quantum state. All possibilities exist. It is in a dynamic, perpetual, oscillatory, unmanifest state. But the moment there is observation, so in Nasadiya Sukta, when we explored, a lot of us found a lot of beauty in this. Normally, what happens when you wake up, just at the time of waking up, the awareness. So there is consciousness, which is the Brahman, and then there is awareness. Awareness is the me aware by myself. That awareness, it points to the outside. And then we wake up into this reality. But if that awareness can be nudged to inside, we will experience our true self. So we were exploring that in Nasadiya Sukta. Here also it says the same thing. In that waking up or falling asleep state, there is a possibility where the observer can either get you into manifest reality or it can show you your true nature. Now, we will see a small video by Gurudev. Yeah. So just tell me if you can hear the audio properly.
Consciousness is unfathomable. It's like an ocean.
Can you hear properly?
Yes, we can hear.
Okay, good. So we will start this.
Consciousness is unfathomable. It's like an ocean. There's many, many layers to it. Innocently, you sit and meditation happens. Then all the layers come. In Hindi, there is a saying, Bole bhav mile ragurai. So you can ask me a question, then how do I become innocent? My mind is so intelligent as of. My dear, just wake up and see what you know is just a little bit only. And you don't know much. That itself will bring the innocence from within you. Huh? And just the recognition of this fact, then humility comes with that innocence is there in you. Every night when you go to bed, at one point of time when sleep is just coming, waking state has just gone, at 1 minute you feel that innocence is just coming into you. And same thing, morning, you are not fully awake, you're just waking up. जब अभी पूरा नींद गई नहीं है, धुंधला सा है, अभी जागे पूरा सोए भी नहीं है, जग रहे हैं, उस जो संधि में, जागृत और सुषुप्ति की संधि में एक बिंदु, एक ऐसा क्षण आपको प्राप्त होता है जो आपको लगता है मैं बहुत तृप्त हूँ और मैं प्यारा हूँ या प्यारी हूँ, मैं मुक्त हूँ। ये भाव, मुक्तता की भाव अपने आप स्फुरित होता है।
How beautifully our Gurudev tells the same thing. He is saying, boss, creation happened before man came. You think you know too much, no? You know nothing. But if you can take that interface, the twilight zone between waking up and sleep, and there you become zero guna. Like Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, just drop your guna. That if it happens, bolapan, innocence happens, and you can have the chance of really seeing yourself. This is what Gurudev is saying here. Exactly what Rishi Kapila has said in Sankhya Karika, Gurudev is saying in such a beautiful way. Yeah. And now in quantum physics, you can see in the Shunya, in that Brahman, the Aikanta, Atyanta, Naikanta, Abhavat. Yeah, that one, this is what is happening. Constantly, it is in a dynamic, oscillatory, permanent, perpetual, unmanifest state, because particles are coming into existence, particles are going out into existence in the vacuum. And this is happening continuously. But because everything gets cancelled, that bow, everything is cancelled, it is a rest state, we can't see it. But that does not mean it is not happening there. So this is actually a recent one. Only a couple of years ago, they captured how in the vacuum, at a very nanoparticle in a femtosecond time period, how particles are appearing and disappearing, appearing and disappearing. The whole of the vacuum is bubbling with action. That is what we see here. Now, when we go to the next one, so this Aikanta Atyanta Ato Abhavat, this is the fundamental concept through which creation happens. And I will show a small video of Federico Fagin. Now, he is the guy who invented the first computer, CPU. He invented the touchpad. He invented neural networks for computing. Let's hear what he has to say.
First of all, there is no boundary, classical. things into boxes. That's the first mistake. There are no separate boxes. One is holistic. The reality, deeper reality is holistic, means it's not made of separable parts. And it's not made of separable concepts, which is even deeper. So even true or false is an approximation of reality valid under certain conditions. Like 1 and 0 are valid for a certain temperature and pressure of the computer. If you change the temperature, it doesn't work anymore. Because that distinction can no longer be valid in a world where there is a continuity. Everything is connected with everything else. So, but we don't want that world because you cannot control that world. So the problem now is a problem of power and control. This desire to have a deterministic and reductionistic world, which is the materialist philosophy, which is it's time to abandon that because quantum physics already is saying that that doesn't work. According to quantum physics, the universe is holistic, is not made of separable parts. Everything is connected. Everything is connected from the inside. According to most physicists, there is no inside because everything, they think that all that exists is actually what you can measure. But that is not possible. Nobody can understand why quantum computers work because their actual operation cannot occur in space-time. It must occur in what is called Hilbert space. Hilbert space is supposed to be a mathematical abstraction. So how can you do operations in an abstract space of mathematics? You see, it's incoherent. But nobody wants to think deeply about this stuff because nobody has ever taught how to think deeply about stuff.
Wonderful words from Fagin. But what he doesn't realize is 35,400 years ago, Rishi Kapila said exactly the same thing. Is it exactly the same thing? See, what is basically here being said is that you cannot separate things. At the fundamental level, everything is one. Everything is one at the fundamental level. At the quantum level, already everything is existing as a flux. So you can't say that this is chemistry, this is physics, this is mathematics, this is biology, this is genetics. We study everything in compartments and boxes. But that's the mistake because we don't start at the very beginning. Yeah, so that is what he talks about that, just to give you an idea of what that is. Yeah. Now, what is interesting is that we will go to this one on the next one, but it is interesting to see how this will impact our life.
Mechanics is a branch of physics that studies the behavior of matter and energy at the atomic and subatomic levels. It is a world where energy exists in discrete packets called quanta, and where particles like electrons can behave like waves. One of the most startling discoveries of quantum mechanics is that the vacuum of space is not empty at all. Instead, it is teeming with virtual particles that are constantly popping in and out of existence. These virtual particles, governed by Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, create fluctuations in the vacuum's energy, resulting in a background energy that permeates all of space. This background energy is what we call zero-point energy. For decades, the idea of harnessing this energy was relegated to the fringes of science. However, recent breakthroughs in our understanding of quantum mechanics and advancements in nanotechnology have brought us closer than ever to making ZPE a reality. The concept of zero-point energy has profound implications for our understanding of the universe and our potential to access a virtually limitless source of clean energy. The energy density of the quantum vacuum is staggering, estimated to be far greater than the energy density of any known conventional energy source. To put it into perspective, some physicists theorize that the zero-point energy contained within a single cubic centimeter of empty space could potentially boil all the oceans on Earth. While this is still a...
So, just to give you an idea, whatever Rishi Kapila is talking about, the Brahman, it is not some concept. it is really something that we can use in our life today. In fact, Nikola Tesla was able to extract energy from vacuum, but unfortunately, that research did not come out. But we can actually do that, because what happens here is that,
Quantum.
see, Rishi Kapila understood this exotic law. Yeah, this exotic law of Dharma. He understood, but why is it that others could not? I mean, why did he have to actually teach us this? Because Bhagavad Gita, the theme of Bhagavad Gita is to become zero guna, right? So he actually, in Sankhya Karika, will take us step by step how to become zero guna. Mathematically, he will show us, and there is a siddhi which is a part of Sankhya Karika, and he tells how to access that siddhi. By the time we do 68 sutras, all of you will know how to access that siddhi where you can become zero guna. It is a part of the Sankhya Karika. It is so powerful, and it is based on simple logic and mathematics. Simple logic and mathematics. So we will come to that. Eventually, we will come to that. But what is important is, even today, the use of this knowledge is tremendous for the planet, for all human beings. Because imagine if we can extract energy out of vacuum, we don't have to have these transmission lines, electricity lines, and cables and everything. Anywhere, sitting in your room, you can create a vacuum and extract energy. Limitless energy. There will be no pollution. There is no climate, carbon footprint, nothing. Clean energy, unlimited energy we can extract. In 35,400 years ago, they knew how to do that. That is why if you see the kind of megaliths that they used to build, the big rocks and everything they used to be able to move, cut, the energy for that they were taking from this Brahman. Naikanta Atyanta Ato Abhavad. That fundamental he is taking. You know, even in my own life, I have seen that this, when you explore this Mandalavatika, Nasadiya Sukta, Sankhya Karika, something happens. People who know me well, they know that I eat very little. I actually eat very, very little. But my cheeks are chubby. I'm full of energy. You know, I have unlimited energy I have. Where does it come from? I tend to believe this is what he is doing. This Rishi Kapila is doing exactly the same thing. We are able to access it from that Brahman. Time. Many people say, sir, how do you have so much time? I will come to you and you will sit with me for 3 hours talking as if you don't have anything else to do in your world. How does time expand, and how do I seem to have more than 24 hours in a day? It is because of this. And every one of us can get this siddhi of nirguna. That is that no zero guna. That means you become innocent. No filters. That's why I keep saying Mandalavatika, the fundamental qualification for a Mandalavatika sadhak is innocence. That is what Lord Krishna was telling Arjuna. Just become zero guna. That means just become innocent. You can see me. And then you can see me in you. That is what Bhagavad Gita is all about. Yeah. So we will explore like this Sankhya Karika. Om Gurubhyoya Namaha Hari Om. Jai Gurudev. Please post messages on the group, your feedback and your experience, please post. And I will be posting the recording, so you can all watch also. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev, thank you so much. Oh,
Thank you.
Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Jai
Jai
Gurudev.
Gurudev.
Jai
Mind
Gurudev.
boggling it is.
Jai
Mind
Gurudev.
boggling.
Thank you,
Jai
Gurudev.
Gurudev.
Thank you so much.
Such joy. Jai Gurudev.
Amazing.
Thank you, sir.
Jai
Jai
Gurudev.
Gurudev. Thank you very much.
Hey, Pam.
Thank you, Jai